Welcome to the deep dive. We often talk about history's big moments, but sometimes the most fascinating stories are those hidden just beneath the surface.
Exactly. These incredible innovations. Sometimes they just don't quite hit the mainstream, but they still hold immense significance.
And today we're uncovering one such treasure, the story of the Gadabuursi Somali script. It's an indigenous writing system you've likely never heard of. But trust me, it's definitely worth this deep dive.
Yeah, our mission today is really to explore its unique history, get into its clever design, and try to unravel why it ultimately remained confined to such a small circle.
And also understand why documenting it is so crucial for Somali linguistic heritage.
Absolutely. And the core of our discussion today, it's based on this foundational academic analysis by I.M. Lewis. It was published way back in 1958.
Right, in the Bulletin of the School of Oriental and African Studies. It's a really remarkable piece of scholarship, shines a light on a part of history that could easily have been forgotten.
It really does.
So let's unpack this. Who's the mind behind this innovation? Abduraxman Qadi.
Yes, he invented the Gadabuursi script around 1933 in what was then British Somaliland.
And his background is pretty compelling, isn't it? He wasn't just some random inventor.
No, not at all. He was actually a member of the chiefly lineage, the Rear Ugaz of the Gadabuursi clan, highly respected.
And he also held an official position.
That's right. He served as a government Qadi, that's like a judge under Islamic law for the Barama district. He actually followed in his father's footsteps, Sheikh Nur.
So he had real standing in the community.
Definitely. And it paints a picture of a dedicated, learned man. He knew his clan's history deeply, even wrote several manuscripts about it, though those were in Arabic.
Okay, so this invention, the script, it seems like it was more of a personal, scholarly thing for him.
It appears so. While there were other efforts happening around the 1920s, 30s to create Somali writing systems, maybe linked to nationalist stirrings, his work seems driven more by his own intellectual curiosity, not necessarily a direct response to those broader movements.
Interesting. A personal pursuit within a broader context of linguistic innovation.
Precisely. Rooted in his own academic interests.
Okay, let's zoom in on the script itself then. What made it tick? What were its key features, linguistically speaking? Strengths, maybe limitations?
Well, one thing that jumps out, especially for that era, is its direction. It reads from left to right.
Like Roman scripts or Ismania.
Exactly. Which was, quite modern and a step towards clarity compared to, say, traditional Arabic script.
And the characters themselves?
Yeah.
How did it handle the specific sounds of Somali, which can be tricky?
Good question. For consonants, it had 21 characters. And it actually did a pretty good job representing most of the Somali consonant sounds.
Better than Arabic script in some ways.
Yes. Its real strength was tackling those distinctly Somali sounds that Arabic script often struggled with, like retroflex consonants where the tongue curls back, and that voiced post-alveolar plosive, sort of the J sound in jump. The Gadabuursi script had specific symbols for these.
Okay, that's quite innovative. Any gaps?
The main one was the lack of a specific character for the glottal stop front. The sound in uh-oh.
Right.
Though Lewis notes the Arabic Hamza could have probably been adapted if needed.
So pretty solid on the consonants, but Somali has a complex vowel system, 10 vowels, long and short. How did Gadabuursi handle that?
Yes, the vowels. That's where it had more limitations. You use 7 vowel symbols for the 10 vowels.
So compromises were made?
Right. For instance, there was no distinction written between short A and long A. Same for short E and long E.
Okay. That could lead to some ambiguity, I imagine.
Potentially, yes. Also, the short O sound was typically written using the U symbol, and the consonants Y and would weren't generally used as vowels on their own, only in diphthongs.
Got it. So some phonetic gaps, but maybe simpler in structure. You mentioned structure. Anything else notable there?
Well, article suffixes like the could sometimes be written separate from the noun they modified.
Interesting.
But a key point is that it didn't really have many of those etymological features you find in the Ismania script.
Meaning it didn't spell words based on their history, but more how they sounded.
Exactly. More phonetically straightforward, less baggage from historical spelling. And this simpler approach, Lewis suggests, potentially gave it greater phonetic regularity, less complicated in a way.
So Sheikh Abduraxman clearly had a knack for this, but as you said, he wasn't alone. How did Gadabuursi stack up against the competition? Let's start with Ismania, often seen as its main rival.
Right. Comparing them is useful. Both were indigenous creations, which is remarkable in itself. Both had original symbols.
And both left to right.
Yes, both left to right,
Yeah.
and both allowed that separation of article suffixes. Some practical similarities in design.
But they diverged significantly, too, especially in adoption.
They did. Ismania, which came a bit earlier, around 1920, from Isman Yusuf Kanadid. It made different choices. It did use Y and W as vowels.
Okay.
And it leaned more into those etymological spellings we mentioned. And the crucial difference, really, is that Ismania gained much wider recognition and usage. It became the more dominant indigenous script for a time.
So why didn't Gadabuursi gain that traction despite its potential phonetic advantages?
Well, that potential phonetic regularity, stemming from its simpler structure, might have been its strength, technically. But it seems Ismania just got more momentum, more users, perhaps better promotion. It's that classic trade-off.
Simplicity versus adoption. Fascinating. What about comparisons to Arabic-based scripts? Many scholars tried adapting Arabic, right?
Yes, figures like Sheikh Mohammed Abdi Makahil and Muz Haji Ismail Galal worked on Arabic adaptations. But Gadabuursi offers some clear advantages over those.
Such as?
Native symbols designed specifically for Somali sounds, not adapted from another language's inventory. That left to right direction again. And crucially, it avoided the ambiguities often found in what was called Wadad's writing.
Wadad's writing.
Yeah, a sort of general term for some of those Arabic adaptations, which could be inconsistent or unclear because they lacked standardization for uniquely Somali sounds. Gadabuursi aimed for more clarity.
And compared to Roman-based systems, which obviously had colonial ties.
Gadabuursi stood as a purely indigenous alternative. It offered a way to write Somali using Somali-generated symbols, avoiding the baggage of colonial alphabets, while still having that modern left-to-right flow. It was a strong contender, conceptually.
Okay, so technically sound, indigenous, addressed specific Somali phonetic needs, yet it didn't take off, this path not taken. Why did it remain obscure?
Lewis's study is really key here. He points out it just remained largely unknown outside the Barama district.
Really localized.
Extremely. Used only by a very small circle of Sheikh Abduraxman's own associates. And crucially, it hadn't been documented in scholarly literature at all before Lewis came along. He basically brought it to light academically.
So what specific factors did Lewis identify for this lack of spread? There must be lessons here about innovation adoption.
Oh, definitely. Lewis highlights several things. One, a lack of promotion by people who are advocating for written Somali more broadly.
Okay, no champions outside its immediate circle.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Two, that very limited geographical distribution we mentioned. Three, and this seems really significant, Lewis suggests the inventor himself lacked ambition for national adoption.
Really? He wasn't pushing for it?
Apparently not on a large scale. It seemed to remain more of a personal or local project for him. And finally, you just had intense competition. There were so many script proposals floating around in that period.
Wow. So a mix of internal factors, the inventor's approach, and external ones, like competition and lack of promotion.
Exactly. It shows that even a technically good system needs more than just good design to succeed. It needs advocacy, ambition, maybe the right political currents.
It really underscores those complex sociolinguistic factors, doesn't it? It's not always about what's best technically.
Precisely. Momentum and social acceptance play huge roles.
So even though it didn't become widespread, what's the deeper significance of the Gadabuursi script? Why is it still important for Somali culture and linguistics?
Well, I think first and foremost, it's a prime example of indigenous linguistic innovation. It really shows local scholars, often deeply rooted in religious learning, creatively tackling the problem of writing their own language.
Using their existing knowledge in new ways.
Exactly. Combining traditional learning with creative problem solving, it speaks the intellectual vitality of the time.
And the fact it emerged from the Gadabuursi clan context, does that tell us something?
Yes, I think its creation and its limited circulation reflect how scholarship often worked along clan lines during the colonial period. Sheikh Abduraxman's high standing within his clan gave him the authority, maybe the resources. But that same structure perhaps also inadvertently limited its reach beyond that group. It became a regional thing.
Which highlights the regional diversity of intellectual life too, right? It wasn't all happening in one place.
Absolutely. This development in Western Somaliland in Barama shows different areas had their own unique responses to these linguistic challenges.
And Sheikh Abduraxman's dual role, religious scholar and government Qadi.
That's a fascinating intersection, too. It represents that blend of traditional Islamic learning and the emerging needs of colonial administration that characterized Somali intellectual life then.
Now, Lewis didn't just analyze the script theoretically. His study included actual examples of it being used, didn't it?
Yes, and this is incredibly valuable. His study contains the only known documentation of Gadabuursi in practical use. He included 6 texts, all written by Sheikh Abdurrahman himself.
6 texts. What kinds of things were written? It must show its versatility.
It really does. It's like a linguistic time capsule. He documented religious literature. There's a qasida, a religious poem praising the Prophet Muhammad.
Showing its use for spiritual expression.
Exactly. But then also everyday correspondence, actual letters from Burama.
No way. What were they about?
All sorts of things. Family news, requests for goods, talk about local events. It gives this amazing unvarnished glimpse into daily life in 1950s Burama, written in this unique script. It's quite extraordinary.
That is incredible, like reading someone's mail from 70 years ago, but in a script hardly anyone knows. What else? Did it handle traditional oral forms?
Yes. Lewis preserved fragments of Gabe, that's classical Somali poetry, by a famous figure, Ugas Nur.
Wow.
And also a Jir, which is a praise poem, this one by Ali Bull about his horse. So it clearly shows the script could be used to transcribe and preserve traditional oral literature. It wasn't just theoretical.
And Lewis presented these texts very thoroughly, I gather.
Extremely. His method was meticulous. For each text, you get a reproduction of the original script, then an italicized transliteration, then a phonetically accurate transcription in Roman letters, and English translations with extensive notes on language and culture.
That's incredibly detailed, really bringing it to life for future researchers.
It really sets a standard, ensures the script and its context are fully preserved and accessible.
So, reflecting on all this, what's the enduring legacy of I.M. Lewis's work here? Why does this documentation matter so much today?
Well, fundamentally, his work is the first and still the only comprehensive academic documentation of the Gadabuursi script. He literally saved it from potential oblivion.
He rescued it from being lost to history.
Pretty much. Without his study, it might just be a footnote, or not even that.
It's not just that he documented it, but how he did it, right?
Exactly. His methodology was groundbreaking for its time. He didn't just look at the script's technical features. He combined that linguistic analysis with deep ethnographic documentation.
Studying it in its social and cultural context.
Precisely. Understanding how and why it was used, by whom, in what setting. That approach is really a model for studying other indigenous writing systems, respecting their context.
And by doing that, he preserved more than just symbols on a page.
For sure. By documenting those texts, the poem, the letters, the poetry fragments, he preserved important examples of Somali literary culture that might otherwise be gone. And it's worth reiterating his technical assessment. Lewis felt that with just minor tweaks, the Gadabuursi script could have been highly phonetically accurate.
And maybe easier to learn because it was structurally simpler.
Potentially, yes. Which makes its failure to gain wider adoption all the more poignant in a way.
So let's try to sum this up. We've taken a deep dive into the Gadabuursi script, this brilliant, homegrown linguistic innovation.
Yeah, technically impressive, thoughtfully designed for Somali.
But ultimately, it faced these sociolinguistic hurdles. Lack of promotion, strong competition, maybe the inventor's own focus that kept it confined.
Right. Despite its limited reach, though, it absolutely remains a significant piece of Somali linguistic heritage. It's a powerful testament to the intellectual vitality and creativity of Somali scholars back then.
And it highlights the really complex challenges involved in creating and establishing writing systems, especially for primarily oral languages.
Definitely. And it brings us back to the critical role of scholars like I.M. Lewis. His meticulous work highlights the sheer importance of preservation.
Ensuring these creative responses, these unique solutions, aren't lost, but are there for us to study and appreciate later.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? What other hidden linguistic treasures might still be out there, waiting to be discovered or just fully appreciated?
And what does their existence or potential loss tell us about how fragile cultural knowledge can be, but also perhaps how resilient it can be when someone takes the time to document it?